Today I'd like to share with you a story written by Dr. Claude Steiner in 1969. He was an avid supporter of people and loving each other. I'm going to read the story because Marlene tweaks, so I'm going to give it to you just as it is, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. The Warm Fuzzy Tale by Claude Steiner. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there were two happy people, Tim and Maggie, and they had two children, John and Lucy. To understand how happy they were, you have to understand how things were in those days. You see, in those happy days, everyone was given a small, soft, fuzzy bag when they were born. Any time a person reached into his bag, they were able to pull out a warm fuzzy. Warm fuzzies were very much in demand because whenever someone was given a warm fuzzy, it made them feel warm and fuzzy all over. In those days, it was very easy to get warm fuzzies. Anytime anybody felt like it, he might walk up to you and say, "I'd like to have a warm fuzzy." You would then reach into your bag, pull out the fuzzy at the size of a child's hand, and as soon as the fuzzy saw the light of day, it would smile and blossom into a large, shaggy, warm fuzzy. When you laid the warm fuzzy on the person's head, shoulder or lap, it would snuggle up right next to you, against their skin, and make them feel good all over. People were always asking each other for warm fuzzies, and since they were given freely, getting enough of them was never a problem. There were always plenty to go around, and so everyone was happy and felt warm and fuzzy all the time. One day, a bad witch came along. She made salves and potions for sick people, and she became angry because everybody was so happy and feeling good all the time, and no one was buying potions and salves. The witch was very clever, so she devised a very wicked plan. One beautiful morning, while Maggie was playing with her daughter, the witch crept up to Tim and whispered in his ear, "See here, Tim, look at all the warm fuzzies Maggie's giving to Lucy. You know, if she keeps it up, she's going to run out, and there won't be any left for you." Tim was astonished. He turned to the witch and said, "Do you mean to tell me that there isn't a warm fuzzy each time we reach into it?" And the witch answered, "No, absolutely not. And once you run out, that's it. You don't have any more." With this, the witch flew away on a broom, laughing and cackling all the way. Tim took this to heart and began to notice every time Maggie gave away a warm fuzzy. He got very worried because he liked Maggie's warm fuzzies. He certainly did not think it was right now to give Maggie's fuzzies to other people. He began to complain or sulk when he saw Maggie giving warm fuzzies to somebody else. And because Maggie loved him very much, she stopped giving warm fuzzies to other people as often and reserved more for Tim. The children watched this, and soon they began to get the idea that it was wrong to give warm fuzzies any time you were asked for it. They too became very careful. They would watch their parents very closely, and whenever they saw that one of their parents was giving too many warm fuzzies to others, they felt jealous and complained, and sometimes even threw a tantrum. And even though they found a warm fuzzy every time they reached into their own bags, they began to feel guilty whenever they gave one away. So they reached in less and less and became more and more stingy with them. Before the witch, people used to gather in groups of 4, 5, never caring too much who was giving warm fuzzies to whom. After the coming of the witch, people began to pair off and reserve all their warm fuzzies for each other exclusively. When people forgot to be careful and gave a warm fuzzy to just anybody, they worried because they knew that somebody would probably resent them giving a warm fuzzy. People began to give less and less warm fuzzies and felt less and less warm and fuzzy. They began to shrivel up occasionally. People would even die from lack of warm fuzzies. People felt worse and worse, and more people would go to the witch to buy potions and salves, even though they didn't really seem to work. Well, the situation got really serious. The bad witch who had been watching all of this didn't really want the people to die, since dead people couldn't buy her potions and salves. So a new plan was devised. Everyone was given, free of charge, a bag that's very similar to the fuzzy bag, except that this one, while the warm fuzzies were warm inside, these had cold pricklies. These cold pricklies did not make people feel warm and fuzzy. In fact, they made them feel cold and prickly instead. But the cold pricklies were better than nothing, and they did sort of prevent people's backs from shriveling up. So from then on, when somebody asked for a warm fuzzy, people who were worried about depleting their supply would say, "I can't give you a warm fuzzy, but would you like a cold prickly instead?" Sometimes two people would walk up to each other thinking that maybe they could get a warm fuzzy, but one of them would change his mind and they would end up giving each other cold pricklies. So the end result was that people were not dying anymore, but a lot of people were very unhappy and feeling cold and prickly instead. The situation got very complicated since the coming of the witch, because there were fewer and fewer warm fuzzies to hand out, and warm fuzzies, which used to be airy and beautiful, were no longer. This caused people to do all sorts of things to get warm fuzzies. They had to work long hours to earn money so they could buy things to make them feel a little bit better. Some people became popular and got a lot of warm fuzzies without even having to give them back. These people would sell their warm fuzzies to people who were unpopular and needed them to feel that life was worth living. Another thing that happened was that some people would take cold pricklies, which were everywhere and freely available, and coated them with white and fluffy stuff so they almost looked like warm fuzzies. These fake warm fuzzies were really plastic fuzzies, and they caused additional problems. For instance, 2 or more people would get together and freely give each other plastic fuzzies. They expected to feel good, but they came away feeling bad instead. People got very confused, not realizing that their cold, prickly feelings were because they were given a lot of plastic fuzzies. So the situation was very, very dismal, and it all started because of the coming of the witch, who made people believe that someday, when they least expected it, they might reach into their warm fuzzy and find no more. Not long ago, a young woman with big hips came to this unhappy land. She seemed not to have heard about what the bad witch had said, and she was not worried about running out of warm fuzzies. So she gave them out freely, even when they were not asked. They called her the hip woman and disapproved of her because she was giving the children the idea that they should not worry about running out of warm fuzzies. The children liked her very much because they felt good around her, and they began to follow her example, giving out warm fuzzies everywhere where they liked. This made the grown-ups worried. To protect the children from depleting their supplies of warm fuzzies, they passed a law. The law made it a criminal offence to give out warm fuzzies in a reckless manner or without a license. Many children, however, seemed not to care, and in spite of the law, they continued to hand out lovely warm fuzzies. As of now, it's hard to say what will happen. Will the grown-ups' laws stop the recklessness of the children? Are the grown-ups going to join with the hip woman and the children in taking a chance that there will always be warm fuzzies? Will they remember the days their children are trying to get back when the warm fuzzies were abundant because people could give them away freely? The struggle spread all over the land and is probably going on right now where you live. And if you want to, and I hope you do, you can join by freely giving and asking for warm fuzzies and being as loving and healthy as you can. This little tale by Dr. Claude Steiner, written in 1969, is as valuable today as it was when it was written. I'd like to just share with you too that Dr. Steiner's his final words were, "Love is the answer." Hope you enjoyed the story.